The aroma was irresistible. In the heart of the Orbitalis star station, the Galactic Alliance cafeteria buzzed with activity. Humans, Dranvians, and Alithians shared an unusually cramped space, while Chef Zark, the renowned multi-tentacled cook, unveiled his latest experiment, Cosmic Chili, an intergalactic adaptation of the infamous human chili cheese dog. Tension hung in the air. For Captain Kale Driston, the occasion was more than just a culinary event. It was a test. After years of battles to prove humanity's worth in the Galactic Alliance, food had become the unexpected diplomatic wildcard that could solidify alliances or destroy them. At his side stood alien advisor Rizayar, eyeing the dish with skepticism. "If this explodes like the last one," Rizayar muttered, referencing the cafeteria incident that almost cost humanity its place in the Alliance, "you'll be personally responsible, Captain." Kale smiled, but cold sweat clung to his back. He knew the chili's introduction wasn't just about taste. It was about identity, a message that humans could bring something fresh and vibrant to the galactic table, quite literally. But as the first Alithians cautiously tasted the dish, an alarm echoed through the station. An unidentified ship appeared on sensors, its intentions unmistakable. The culinary event was abruptly interrupted. The transmission from the ship was short but laden with menace. "Surrender the one responsible for spreading this galactic poison, or face our wrath." Kale and his team exchanged bewildered looks, scrambling to understand what had happened. Was it a cultural misunderstanding? Or something darker? Perhaps sabotage? The emergency alert shattered the station's bustling energy. As the gathered species buzzed with confusion, Kale Driston sprinted to the command bridge, followed by Rizayar and a team of officers. The unknown ship loomed close, dark and menacing, defying all attempts by the station's sensors to perform a detailed scan. "Try to re-establish communication," Kale ordered the communications officer. But the only response was oppressive silence. Instead, the ship sent another transmission, this time accompanied by shocking visuals. Beings from various species writhing in agony after consuming something resembling the chili. For Kale, the message was clear and devastating. The dish meant to symbolize unity was now being perceived as a deadly weapon. Rizayar, usually composed, could not hide her frustration. "I warned you that meddling with alien cultural traditions was dangerous. Now look at the damage we've caused. This could destroy years of diplomatic progress." Kale knew something was wrong. The chili had undergone rigorous testing to ensure interspecies food safety. There was more to this than met the eye. Summoning Chef Zark to the command center, Kale sought answers. "It's impossible for the chili to cause this, Captain," protested Zark, his tentacles twitching nervously. "I used ingredients approved by every biological council in the Alliance." Meanwhile, the hostile ship began emitting pulses that disabled the station's shields. Kale understood they needed to act fast, but without knowing the exact reason for the accusation, any move could worsen the situation. It was then that Lieutenant Neovalis, a young human officer, uncovered something unusual. A chemical signature hidden in the data sent by the ship. "Captain, this didn't come from our chili. These symptoms were caused by a synthetic ingredient. Someone sabotaged the dish," Nia revealed, her eyes wide. Kale clenched his fists. Sabotage? But by whom? And why? Before they could investigate further, the ship opened its compartments, revealing waves of invading troops ready to strike. Kale activated his communicator. "Combat alert! Everyone to your stations. We will defend the station, but we need answers." The mystery was only beginning, and Kale knew every second mattered. They weren't just facing an external threat, but a conspiracy that could shake the entire alliance to its core. Sirens blared across the station as the invaders advanced. On the command bridge, Kale watched the monitors displaying enemy troops descending in transport pods. The invading ship, though small, appeared highly advanced, with pulsating biological weapons lining its sides. Every move was calculated, as if the attackers knew the station better than any external enemy should. Rizayar approached, her hands clasped tightly. "We can't let these intruders take control. Sector 7 contains the Alliance's primary databanks. If they capture it, They could expose our trade routes and even planetary defenses. Kale nodded, but another issue gnawed at him. Who were the invaders? The use of such precise sabotage suggested they had access to internal information. He pulled Nia and Zark aside. We know the chili was tampered with, but who could have done it without raising suspicion? Kale asked. Only authorized Alliance suppliers, Zark replied hesitantly. And the security in the labs is tight. This could only have been done by someone inside the Alliance itself. A chill ran down Kale's spine. An internal betrayal would be catastrophic, especially from species that had only recently forged alliances. Before they could form a plan, an explosion rocked the station. Sector 7 was under direct attack. Kale and Rizar led a team of soldiers, sprinting down corridors as the sound of combat echoed around them. Nia, with her analytical expertise, stayed on the bridge to uncover more clues about the invaders. In Sector 7, the battle was fierce. The enemy troops wore organic armor that seemed to absorb plasma fire. While Rizar led a direct charge, Kale noticed something strange. The invaders' weapons emitted a familiar sound. They were eerily similar to technologies developed by a secret division of the Alliance. Riz, this isn't alien tech. These are our own designs being used against us, Kale shouted, taking cover. Amid the chaos, Zark transmitted an urgent message. Captain, we've discovered something. The invaders are emitting a signal. It's responding to the main ship. It's almost like they're drones, remotely controlled. Kale glanced at the ship through a shattered wall panel. If they could neutralize it, they might stop the attack. But doing so would mean abandoning the fight in Sector 7 and redirecting all efforts to a high-risk mission. We have to decide now, Rizar said, wounded but resolute. Do we stay to protect our data or take out the root of the threat? The dilemma was clear. Safeguard the Alliance in the short term or risk everything for a long-term solution. Kale clenched his fist and made his decision, fully aware that whatever choice he made would come with severe consequences. With the decision made, Kale assembled a team to infiltrate the enemy ship. It was a dangerous plan. They had to cross the battlefield in Sector 7, evade automated defense systems, and board the ship to disable the remote drone controls. Meanwhile, Rizar would stay behind to protect critical data, leading the resistance on the station. At the launch bay, Kale briefed the volunteers. Nia insisted on joining, arguing that her engineering skills were essential to bypass alien encryption. To everyone's surprise, Zark volunteered as well. Someone has to make sure our new friends don't sabotage our cooking again, he said with a nervous but determined smile. The infiltration craft cut through space at high speed, dodging debris and enemy fire. Inside, Kale went over the plan with his team. Our priority is to reach the command core. We disable the connection to the drones and destroy the central system. No matter what happens, we don't come back without completing the mission. When the craft finally latched onto the side of the enemy ship, an oppressive atmosphere enveloped them. The ship's internal walls pulsed with organic lights, almost like veins carrying living energy. Nia analyzed the surroundings as they moved forward. This isn't just biotechnology. It's alive. They didn't build this ship. They cultivated it. As they neared the core, resistance emerged. Smaller drones sprang from the walls, attacking with lethal precision. Zark was injured but refused to fall behind. Every step forward was a fight, but they finally reached the core, a pulsating heart encased in layers of biological cables. Nia began working frantically to deactivate the system while Kale and the rest of the team held off the drones. This is more complex than anything I've ever seen. I'm not sure I can. Nia began before Zark interrupted. You can. And if you can't, we're all dead anyway. Then, something unexpected happened. A voice echoed from the core, a blend of metallic and organic tones. You should not be here. You've trespassed on what is ours. Now you will be assimilated. It was the ship itself speaking. Nia screamed as the cables began to move, reaching out to ensnare them. With time running out, Zark made a desperate decision. He manually connected his device to the system, overloading the core with more energy than it could handle. Zark, no! Kale shouted, but it was too late. A flash of light engulfed the core as the system collapsed. The drones fell, lifeless, and the ship began to disintegrate. Kale and Nia barely escaped, returning to the station as the enemy ship exploded in a wave of energy. They had won, but the cost was high. Back at the station, the destruction of the enemy ship brought only momentary relief. The war was far from over. The annihilation of the core had enraged the enemy fleet. Remaining drones began converging for a massive assault on the orbital station. Rizar, leading the defense, was overwhelmed. Kale and Nia arrived at Central Command, still shaken by Zark's loss. The sight of Rizar struggling to coordinate the defenses was a grim reminder that they were on their last line. "We need to concentrate all our firepower on the fleet's weak points," Rizar said, pointing to the holographic map. "But we're running out of energy and resources. If they breach our defenses, it's over." Kale knew they couldn't just hold the line. It was time to take a risk. "We launch a final counterattack," Kale declared. "We'll divert all remaining power to the ion cannons and focus on the motherships. If we destroy their central command, the remaining drones might lose coordination. It's our only shot." Rizar hesitated. "That will leave us defenseless." "If we fail, we're already defenseless," Kale cut in. "If we do nothing, everyone dies." The team worked frantically to reroute power. Meanwhile, Nia adjusted the targeting systems, using everything she had learned on the enemy ship. "These biological cables respond to specific energy patterns," Nia said. "I can overload the motherships, but only if we buy enough time." With the preparations complete, the station fired its ion cannons. The initial shots struck one of the motherships, inflicting severe damage but not enough to destroy it. The enemy fleet retaliated with full force, shaking the station to its core. "We're losing pressure in multiple sectors," Rizar reported as alarms blared throughout the station. Kale turned to Nia. "It's now or never." "5 more seconds," she replied, sweat dripping down her face. Kale made the decision to leave the station and lead a squadron of fighters to distract the fleet. He knew it was likely a suicide mission but trusted Nia to finish the job. "Nia, you're the only one who can do this." Rizar, "Keep things running for as long as possible. I'll be back." "Or I won't." The squadron managed to divert the fleet's focus, buying Nia the precious seconds she needed. When the overload was triggered, a massive explosion rippled through the motherships, shutting down the remaining drones. The enemy fleet began to scatter, disorganized and vulnerable. Kale returned to the station, gravely injured but alive. The battle appeared to be over, but the station was in ruins, and the casualties were devastating. As the team counted the survivors, an enigmatic message was intercepted. A fragment from the enemy system suggested this was only the beginning. The battle within the station reached its climax. The disoriented enemy forces launched frantic drone assaults against vital systems. Every corridor became a battlefield, with explosions and screams echoing in a desperate symphony. Zark led a team of engineers and soldiers in a final effort to keep the station operational. "If we lose the power core, it's over," Zark shouted as he helped Nia re-enable the outer shield. "Someone's gonna have to overload the reactor manually. It'll give us enough power to fire the main cannon. But whoever does it won't be coming back." A heavy silence followed. Everyone understood the cost. Rizar opened his mouth to volunteer, but Zark stopped him with a gesture. "You're the leader now, Rizar. There's no future without you." "I'll do it." Kale tried to protest, but Zark had already made up his mind. To protect everyone, someone had to step forward. With one last look at his team, Zark left the hangar and sprinted toward the core. Meanwhile, Nia and Kale coordinated the remaining forces to repel the drones. The station's main cannon was activated, but it needed a final surge, a powerful blast to destroy the enemy fleet in orbit. The price was the power core, and Zark was there, making the final adjustments for the overload. As the cannon fired, the core collapsed. The explosion annihilated the enemy ships, turning the sky into a spectacle of light and chaos. Zark was consumed by the energy, but his voice echoed one last time through the team's comm channel. "Don't stop. Make it count." When the dust settled, The enemy fleet was gone, but Zark's sacrifice left a deep mark. Rizar, now bearing the weight of leadership, vowed that his death would not be in vain. Nia, clutching the tools Zark had left behind, felt the gravity of the moment. She knew that the fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. With the communication systems restored, the station sent a message to the farthest corners of the galaxy. A call for other colonies to unite against the common enemy. The message ended with a powerful reminder. There's one thing machines will never have: the courage to sacrifice everything for another. Zark's sacrifice became the spark for a new phase of resistance, where the impossible was no longer a limit but a challenge to be overcome. Days had passed since the destruction of the enemy fleet. The station, still damaged, had become a symbol of resilience and sacrifice. Rizar, now the interim leader of the resistance, gathered the survivors in the main hangar. Pieces of destroyed ships still floated in space, a silent reminder of the battle. "We've lost much, but we were not defeated," Rizar began, his voice firm but heavy with sorrow. "Zark, our pilots, our friends, their sacrifices will not be forgotten. They gave us the chance to fight for something greater than survival. We will honor that." Kale, leaning on a makeshift crutch, watched in silence. His body was battered, but his resolve remained unbroken. Beside him, Nia was finishing repairs on the communication systems. The data recovered from the enemy ship had revealed something alarming. The drones were just part of a much larger fleet, waiting for orders in a distant sector of the galaxy. "They'll be back," Nia said, handing Kale a holographic pad. "But we have time to prepare. We need to warn other colonies. We can't fight this alone." Kale nodded, knowing the road ahead would be difficult. "We need more than weapons. We need allies. If we can show we can win, others may join us. That's how we won today, together." At the improvised memorial in the station's center, Zark's name was engraved alongside countless others who had given their lives for the cause. Nia lingered there for a moment, reflecting on his final words. "Trust the impossible." Those words echoed in her mind, a reminder that victory often comes from taking seemingly reckless risks. The station was renamed Sentinel of Hope. From its outpost, Rizar sent a call to the stars, a plea for unity against the looming darkness. To his surprise, the first responses arrived within hours, faint signals from other colonies that had also faced the machines. Kale, now leading the reconstruction efforts, saw those responses as a glimpse of something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. As communications continued to pour in, it became clear that the war was far from over, but they would no longer fight alone. As the imaginary camera pulls back from the wreckage surrounding the station, a silent echo reverberates across the stars. Sometimes, the impossible is just the beginning.